Next one is the active and inactive relationship. This is very specific to Power BI. This is not, see, so far we discussed about the type of relationship. That is not specific to Power BI. That is the universal concept. If you do any data model design, the relationship, only those four relationship are possible. One to one many to one, and many to many. That is a universal concept. Okay. The universal data model type of relationship. Okay. But when it comes to active and inactive relationship, this is very specific to Power BI. Okay. What is active relationship? First of all, what is inactive relation? Active relation propagates filters to other tables. And during a task, an inactive relation filter propagates. Very simple, right? So what do you mean by filter? I just help you recollect it. I believe all of you are aware of this one. We discussed about this. What is filtering? Look here, there is a reporting requirement wherein they wanted to display. One second. Let's say reporting requirement wherein you need to display the country name. Along with that, you need to display the quantity and sales. Your report should show three columns: country, quantity, sales. Okay, so the country is not available in a single table, right? Sorry, the country is not available in this table. You all agree with me or not? Look here, this is the kind of report is required. And when the reporting user, when they open the report, they want to see country column, and okay, country column, quantity column, and then sales column. These three columns should be there in a report. Okay. In this report, US, they want to see in US what is the total sales. 18, the total number of units we sold. And the sales, you have total number of sales we made in US. They want to see the summarized value, not the transaction level. This is itemized or transaction level data we have it. But the top level management, they don't want to see day-to-day sales, everything. Okay. They want to see, tell me, what is the summarized information? Give me the summarized. In US, give me how many units we sold in total for the last 6 months. And in US, how much sales we made in total in US in the 6 months, last 6 months. That's it. They want the aggregated information. For example, year 15, 19, 21, almost 20, 23K, right? Almost 23K in US, right? This is the thing they want to say. But here the challenge is the country column is available here. The remaining two columns are available here. If I wanted to select these three columns from these two tables, what should I do? I explained you very clearly. That means you do not understand the previous concept. That is the reason why you're not able to understand the subsequent concept. This is a very important topic. Since these three columns are not available in this table, in the single table, yes, Rupa, you are correct. Aishu, you are correct. Jamal, you are correct. Right? We need to join these two tables. Since these three columns are not available in a single table, it requires joining. How do you join that? Can I join it simply? No, right? You need to join. So, okay, since these three columns are not available in a single table, we need to join these tables. How do you join it? Based on the common column. You have something, yes, Rupa, and you're correct. Based on the common column, right? What is the common column between these two tables? Country ID. Okay. So once you create the relationship, define a relationship in Power BI desktop, right? What will happen is, what happens behind the scene, let's say I call it dim customer. The table name is dim customer dimension table. This is your sales transaction table. Sales transaction table. In the customer dimension table, right? What happens once you create the relationship in Power BI desktop? What it does is it goes to the first record. The customer dimension table filters your sales transaction table. Customer dimension table filters the sales transaction table. Right. So what will happen is, for the simple thing is, see, if you go to a report canvas and if you drag and drop, these three columns, country, quantity, sales in that, right? What will happen is automatically all, each country, what is the total we need sold and all the things it will give you automatically, right? This is, let's say this is your matrix or table visual. It does this automatically. Okay. Right. So how it is possible? How it gives me a table with the summarized data automatically? Because you have created the relationship between these two tables based on the common column country ID. In this case, behind the scene, what happens? It goes to the first record. It takes the first value US because you have created the relationship between the two tables based on the key column, right? The key column is country ID. It propagates this country ID to this table. And what happens is here, it filters the transactions that are related to the country ID US. Here the US is there, and then it groups all the records that are, filters is nothing but groups all the records that were related to US. Yes, Jamal, you are correct, right? So, and then what it does is, the default aggregation function is sum. What happens is 6 plus 5 is 16 plus 2, 18. Automatically, it gives you that. And next one is, it applies the sum on these things. So this is called your relationship, active relationship. Okay, this is called filtering. Okay, filtering. In this case, the dimension table, the country sorry, this is not customer dimension, this is a country dimension. Country dimension. The country dimension table propagates, it's a fancy term, okay, propagates the filters to the other tables. Not only this, if you have another table, right? If you can still join the country ID with the other table if that table have country ID in it. So it'll, since you have created the relationship between the tables using the country ID column, it propagates the country ID value to the other tables. It sends the US first and then groups all the US related records, and then it applies the sum on the quantity column for the US. It applies the sum on the sales column for the US records. And then it goes to the next record. Australia value will be sent here. All the Australia relevant records will be grouped. And then it applies the sum on the quantity column of Australia. So 10 plus 5, 15 plus 2, 17, and the rest of the values. Okay. And then once that job was done, next it goes to the next record, GE, Germany. It groups the records that were related to Germany. The Germany related records, right? It groups it together and then it applies the sum of the quantity and sales. You are able to understand, right? So this is what I explained at the very beginning of this data modeling training. When I explained about what is data modeling, why data modeling, I explained this one. Filtering. Okay, filtering is nothing but passing or propagating the filters from one table to another table. Here filter is nothing but you are simply passing the key column to other tables. Okay, that's all. Very simple. To make it in a very simple and layman term, we are simply passing the key column to the other tables. But to pass the value key column from one table to another table, you need to make sure that you have created the relationship already using that key columns. Okay, so that is what your this thing. Okay, now what we will do is we'll take a look at the inactive and active relationship. See, in Power BI, what will happen is, look here, in this case, I go to the model view. Model view. In this case, if you see here, and these two tables, not this table, and I just, if you see the date dimension table and then sales W04, for these two tables, I have created more than one relationship. In the real world, obviously you need to have more than one relationship between the tables because you need to use the dimension table. We are using the dimension table to filter our fact table, right? You just assume that this is a fact table. Okay, the dimension tables are used to filter the transaction tables or fact table. Here we have created the relationship between the two tables. Here the relationship, right? That here you have date column, and it is slightly different. It's not a common column, right? So order date. Date column from your dim date table to order date, you have created the relationship first. And then I have created, and second time what I did, I create the relationship with date and ship date column. Date and ship date column, okay? Date and ship date column, I create the relationship. So when you create the relationship between the tables first time, that is called your active relationship. When you create the second relationship between the table, that is called your inactive relationship. Got it? This is your active, this is inactive relationship. Okay. Why it is inactive? By default in Power BI, you can at a time you can create only one active relationship. It is that much simple. If you want to create, let's your requirement is something different. You cannot rely on only one relationship, right? You need to create multiple relationship between the tables. In this case, I'm using the date dimension to filter the sales table by order date. And also I want to use the same date table to filter the sales by order shipment date. Okay. So in that case, I need to create multiple relationship between the tables, but the limitation here is at a time you can create only one active relationship. That too, whatever the relationship that you created first time, only that one will be considered as an active relationship. Whatever the relationship that you created later, that one will be considered as an inactive relationship. How do I understand which one is the active and inactive relationship? When you see the dotted line, you can easily make out that this is your inactive relationship, this is active relationship. Okay, what exactly active relationship does? Since this one is considered as an active relationship, the values dimension date dimension table can filter this table. It can actively propagate the filter from here to here. You remember when I say filter, you need to remember that in your mind. Which one? The country dimension, another table. Okay, and even in this case, the date dimension table and this table, right? We have one active and one inactive relationship. The challenge here is the active relationship, since we have it between these two tables, the date dimension can pass the values to this one in a simple layman term. It simply pass the value here. Whereas inactive relationship cannot pass the value, which means it cannot propagate the filters to this table. This table can propagate the filter to this table, but this table cannot propagate the filter to this table because this is an inactive relationship. This inactive relationship, then question is, then why do we need to create a relationship here? Since it is inactive and if I cannot pass the value, why do we? But there is it requires some kind of treatment. It requires some kind of treatment. Okay. So with that treatment, you can enable this inactive relationship active temporarily until all the calculations are performed. Okay, fine. So active relationship can be created at a time, only one time between the tables. You can create more than one relationship, but whatever the relationship that you create first time, that is considered as a active relationship. Later relationship, whatever you create between the tables, that one will be considered as a inactive relationship. Okay, between the same tables. Okay. Now the question is, inactive relationship doesn't pass the filter to this table because it is inactive. So how do I, then what is the purpose of this one? I will explain you in a little later. So why do we need, but this is mandatory. But what we can do is, we can enable this inactive relationship active temporarily, which means until you want to perform some calculations, this one will become active temporarily and then it will become inactive. Once your calculations are done, this one will become inactive automatically. This is one approach. Approach two is, okay, why should I create an inactive relationship? Why should I activate it temporarily later point? Is there any other alternate? Yes, in this case, I have duplicate this table again, simply copy pasted it. You just think that way, okay? Simply copy pasted it. And I renamed this table as a ship date. For our understanding, I renamed it. Both the table, if you open the table, both the table, you will find the same value, same columns. I duplicated it. If I have two tables, I can create one active relationship with this one. I can create, instead of having inactive relationship, I can create another active relationship. Listen very carefully. This active relationship and this active relationship. We have, instead of having this, right, we are having two active relationships. So in this case, you don't have this one. In the second approach, duplicate this table, okay? This table, I duplicated it here, simply copy pasted it, and then I renamed it. All the columns and values, whatever you have, the same thing are there here. That is what duplicate. Since I have the luxury of having two different tables with the same data, I can create, since I can create at a time only one active relationship, so you can create one active relationship, and you can create another relationship. This one, the second one, I created it here, right? But here between the tables, we have only one relationship, hence it is considered an active relationship. Okay, here, the date can pass to this table, and it can filter the sales amount by order date. With this help of table, we can pass this date to this table to filter the sales amount by ship date. Got it? Okay. It is that much simple. How many of you are able to understand? How many of you are able to understand? Jamal, okay, you're able to, it's very clear. Jamal says, very clear. Pavitra says, excellent. Okay. And Rupa says, great, great. Okay. And Divya, okay, I need some time to understand. Okay, you watch my video and that's all. Okay. So now the question is, so why do I first of all need two relationship? Okay. What do you mean by using my date dimension table to filter this table? See, this one don't ask me, already explained. Country dimension and then other table. You remember, this is the one you need to, this is the one it should come into your mind. This is the thing should come into your mind. Whenever I talk about filter, this is my country dimension table. It filters this table. What does it say is, you need to create the relationship between these two tables based on the common column, right? These are the two common columns using which we create the relationship. What will happen is it will first value will go here, all the US records will get grouped, and then it applies the some summarization, right? It does the aggregation. Same principle here, but here instead of country dimension table, we have the date dimension table. So here, this date is linked with order date, and this table's date is linked with ship date. That's all. In that case, you don't need this relationship. Okay, approach one is you don't need a duplicate of this table. You can use a single table. You can create more than one relationship between the tables, but at a time you can create only one active relationship. The first time, whatever the relationship that you get, that is considered as an active relationship, rest of them are considered inactive relationship. If you know this much, that is enough. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll give you one example. With that, you should be able to understand very clearly. For example, I'm going to click on a table visual. The table visual. What we will start with this example, first example, okay? And the sales based shipment. Okay, I will remove this one. Okay, let it be there. Okay, let it be there. Here, what I'm going to do is the date dimension table. Look at the dim date is filtering your sales table. Here I'm going to say the month. Okay, I'll just put month here. And the sales W04 table have sales value here, right? Sales value. I just drop it here. But here, okay, I'll increase the font size. I'll be increasing it to 12, 13. But month it shows 9530. Month supposed to be 1, 2, 3, right? 12 months only is there, right? But here it shows because because the month column is a number data type, as I said earlier, all the numeric column, what Power BI does, it applies the sum function. Okay, it adds all the month. We don't want this one to get added. So I'm going to click on the drop down here. Can you all see it? When I select this table, this one will be displayed here on the right side, the columns, right? The column field will get displayed. And in this one, the month is there. Click on the drop down. Instead of sum, click on don't summarize. Because we don't want to sum the month. It doesn't make sense, right? That is not the correct way of doing it. Can anyone sum the month column? No, right? That doesn't make sense. So I went here, I don't summarize. That's it. So now what happened? For each and every month, what is the sales we made? Okay, fine. This column comes from where? The month column comes from where? All of you please respond so that if you don't concentrate, I cannot be held responsible. Okay. So the month column comes from which table? Yes, Jamal, you are correct. How about others? The month column comes from date dimension table. The sales column comes from which table? Yeah, none of you are except Jamal, rest of you are not responding. That means you are not concentrating here. Sales column. These two columns are coming from two different tables. You all agree with me or not? Agree with me or not? All of you, please hold your attention here, okay? Yes, Aishu, Divya, Abe, Pavitra, okay? And Jamal already he gave the correct answer. The month comes from dim date table. So don't think anything else, only about these two tables, okay? The month comes from this table, and then the sales column comes from which table? Sales underscore W04 table, right? These two columns are coming from these two different tables. Okay, fine. So now the date dimension table. So date dimension table is filtering the sales W04 table by the sales amount. Sales amount. Sorry, the date dimension table filtered my sales W04 table sales amount by order date. Okay, that is what the default relationship, isn't it? If I select, if I keep the cursor here, if I keep the cursor here, look here, let me just move this down. If I keep the cursor here between the relationship, tell me which columns in both the table get highlighted. Which two columns are getting highlighted? Yes, Jamal, you are correct. Pavitra, you are correct. Rupa, you are correct. So which two columns got highlighted in both the tables? Date and order date, right? The second one, if I keep the cursor here, the date and ship date got highlighted. So the default active relationship at date and the order date, right? Date and order date. Date and the order date. These two columns got created with a relationship. Okay, one-to-many relationship. Okay. So hence it was able to do the filtering perfectly here. If I remove the relationship, what is going to happen? If I remove the relationship, it cannot do the filtering. If I go here, see, it displays the total sales across the months. It is not doing the filtering currently because there is no relationship exists here. So I'm going to select the date column from the date dimension table and I'm going to drop it on top of the order date column. That means the dim dates date column will filter the sales amount column by order date. Okay, now if I keep the cursor, yes, this is the active relationship. Okay, and this is your inactive relationship. Okay, now the Rupa's question is you deleted that relationship and you created it again. And as per you said earlier, what are the relationship you create first time, that one will become active and the second one will become inactive. Yes, but in this case, it already become a inactive, right? When you, even though I removed the active relationship, this still remains as an inactive. Okay, this will not become active automatically. Yeah, you need to remember this one also. Okay. And then when I create the second time, but if you create any other relationship between these two tables, and right, the rest of the relationship will be inactive. Okay, the date and order date, since it has an active relationship, it is doing the filtering correctly. Okay. Now, this one is an inactive relationship. Date and which one? The ship date. These two were inactive. How do I activate this? We have one approach. We can create the DAX function. Okay, how do I create DAX function? Go to the modeling ribbon, click on it here, new measure. This is sales amount by order date. You can use month or quarter or date also. Okay, date will be too lengthy. That's the reason I used month. This is sales by order date. Okay, and here what I do is sales by ship date measure. The sum of sales column from, sorry, sales W04 underscore W04 table. And here you have something called sales, right? Sales, comma, what is that function name? The function name is use relationship. Second one, the first column here is your, I'm talking about date table, right? Dim date, date column, comma, the sales underscore W04 table, ship date this time, not the order date. Order date is the default one, right? Active relationship. See what here this function does is, since the date column from the dim date and the ship date in this table, we have created the relationship, it became inactive. Using the this function, use relationship function, we can temporarily enable this inactive relationship, active relationship, until this calculation is done. Don't think too much at this moment. Okay. And yeah, we need one more parenthesis for calculate to close that one. Okay. Okay. If you see here, I just put one additional closed parenthesis. This one got highlighted. The corresponding open parenthesis, you can see that. There should be a correspondence, right? The closed for a closed one, this is the one. And for this closed one, this is the open parenthesis. Oh, for this, it shows, no, let me do one thing. Yeah, if I select this open one, there is a closed parenthesis. Each open parenthesis should have a corresponding closed parenthesis. Okay. Since use relationship is a function, you should have an open and closed parenthesis and calculate. So you cannot use the use relationship separately. You will have to call this function inside this function only. One way it is good, using this function, we are telling them, hey, this is an inactive relationship. You need to enable it active until this calculation is done. Okay, fine. I'm going to press enter, or you can click on the tick mark. How do you create the measure? This is called measure. Okay, you need to go to the modeling ribbon, click on the new measure and type it here. Okay, fine. I'm done with this. You can see it on the right side, sales by shipment date here. Can you all see it here? Can you all see it here? This is the one I'm talking about it. So once you press enter, in case of no syntax error, in case of any error in your, supposing you've used a wrong column name, some mistake you made it here, okay? Instead of using sales W04, right? Typo, right? Sales no underscore W04. So the table is not there, it will throw an error. And if you use the wrong column also, it will throw an error. Okay, date column, you need to use it. In this case, we have create the relationship between these two tables based on the date and ship date column. Since already we created a relationship, this one was considered as an inactive relationship. To activate this inactive relationship smartly, temporarily active, we are using a function called use relationship, but this function we cannot use it alone. We need to call it inside the calculate function. The first argument is supposed to be an expression in the case of calculate function. And hence what happens here, sum of sales amount I'm giving it. So, right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop this into this visual. Okay, now what I will do is this shows sales, this this gives me proper meaning, sales by ship date. Forget out the blank record, maybe some blank record data issues are, we can ignore that one now. So now what I'll do is I'm going to rename this column with a meaningful name. When your manager say this is for sales by ship date, this is for what? So you can, instead of renaming the column itself, you select this visual. When you select the visual, what will happen? It will display the field name called columns here for the table visual. Okay. And here it shows all the columns and measures that used it for this table, it will display here. So what I'm going to do, if I keep the cursor on top of the sales, it shows sales W04 sales, sum of this one. Okay. Click on the down arrow. You go and rename for this visual. I'm going to rename this column only for this visual smartly. Sales by order date. Look here, it got changed as sales by order date, right? Sales by this one will give more clear, clarity to everyone. Okay. So, but here when you see both the values are not same, but the total values are matching. The first month, 6,04,000 sales we made, but the same first month we could see the 6,40,000 here. So what is the difference between these two? What the hell? Sales by order date, sales by ship date. I will explain with a simple example. Hope you'll be able to understand the scenario. I'm going to explain it now. What is the scenario here? Why do we need to use this report first of all? So here, let's say you have ordered a product in Amazon, okay? And the same day, let's say you want to buy two, jeans trouser, right? You want to buy two jeans trouser. You order it today. While ordering it, you swiped your card. You made the payment. When you raise the product, you made the payment on the same day. That is what your order date, sales by order date. But here, please, what I do is I use the cash on delivery. Okay, let's say I ordered it on, let's say, 11th June. 11th June, I ordered it. But if you see the sales amount, right? The sales here, nothing will be there. Because I have chosen the type as cash on delivery, shipment mode. And let's say 13th June, it got shipped. The day when I received my jeans trousers, I make the payment. In that day, the sales column will have value. Let's you have something called 2,250 or something like that. Okay. 13th June, I received the order. Shipment, that is when the shipment happened. Upon receiving the product, I made the payment. But here, that order date, the date when I ordered it, I did not make any payment. I have chosen cash on. So here, the 11th June, there is no sales. I did not receive any amount. That doesn't mean it's a free, right? That doesn't mean it's a free. But 13th June, later point, so that is what it shows. The sales by ship date is the date when the customer receive the product, they make the payment. There are customer, when they raise the order, that time itself, they make the payment. So that is what the requirement, reporting requirement. In that kind of situations, to filter the sales table by order date, you need to link the date dimension tables date column with the sales tables order date column. If I wanted to see the sales by shipment date, I need to create the relationship date dimension tables date column with the ship date of my sales table. That's all here. Is it clear or no? How many of you are able to understand this one? Yes, Jamal. Jamal says super. Between these two, sales, we are looking at only this one. We have explored what is active relationship, what is inactive relationship, and also we have seen, we have created the visual, table visual. In the table visual, we were able to see that since this one is an active relationship, the date and order date. Where is that order date? Date and order date. If you see this, it is since it is an active relationship, it propagates the filter, which means it passes the date to this one. For those date, whatever the values are, it groups that, or month, right? It groups that and it gives me the sum of sales for that month, each and every month. It gives me, in our case, we have used the month as the first column from this table. Fine. But this one, it doesn't pass the filter here automatically because it is inactive. To make it active, you need to use a DAX function. What is the DAX function? The interview will ask you use relationship function. But use relationship, we cannot use it directly. You need to use that function inside the calculate function. You can invoke this function via calculate function only. That's all, guys. See, it is that much simple. Active and inactive. Now you understand? So this is what is happening here. Okay, we have another approach. Instead of using the DAX function, is there any other way? So what I did, I already copied this table here. Simply copy paste it, rename the table. That's all. This time what I do is, I'm not going to use this relationship. Okay. And here I have created a direct relationship with this one with this one. See here. Now you tell me, is that an active or inactive relationship? All of you please type it in the chat window. Is this an active relationship or inactive relationship? Yes, 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 you're all correct. This is an active. Why it is an active relationship? Why it is an active relationship? Because it's a solid line. It is not a dashed line. With that itself, we can make out. Now you tell me. So this one is the date and ship date, and here if you see here, date and order date, right? Date and order date, date and order date, date and ship date. In that case, you don't need this one at all. Okay, let it be there. Okay, and now what I do is, I'm going to create another table. For the time being, I will just resize it and move that up so that we will have sufficient space here to demonstrate this one. Here, what I do is, I will be moving the sales amount from my sales from this table from here to here. And then here, what I am going to do is, I'm going to take the month column. $604, right? So this is the one we already achieved. But now the challenge is, I just copy paste this one. In this case, I have used this column from the date dimension. But if I wanted to use the ship date, I have to use it, right? I have to use the ship date dimension, ship dimension. So what is this one? Ship date dimension. Instead of this one, so this one is active relationship. The order date will get filtered. But here, the ship date, in order for the ship date should get filtered, I'm not supposed to use the month from dim date dimension. Instead, I'll have to use it from my ship date. Yes, Jamal, you are absolutely correct. You need to use the date dimension here. Okay. So not instead, what will you use the month here? And same thing. I just go over here and then I'm going to remove this one. I move this up. Sorry, I just move this up and I'm going to don't summarize. It is doing perfect job. Got it? This one, this month come from the duplicated table. In our case, the duplicate table is ship date. And here, this one came from which table? Dim date table. But the challenge here is you cannot combine these two things, okay? Because the first column value filters the second column, but this column comes from dim date. If you try to filter this one, right, it will not give you. So the one disadvantage with this, the duplicating the dimension and then creating the one, the active relationship, that is possible. You don't need an inactive relationship. But you cannot combine these two things in a single table, unlike the measure. So this is called your role-playing dimension. The same dimension I copy and I create the relationship here. Hence, it is called a role-playing dimension. What do you mean by role-playing? The same dimension plays different role. It is just a copy of this one, but the same dimension plays a different role. It's something like in a house. A person is there, right? So a person may be a spouse for a lady, or the same person is a brother for another girl in the family, right? A single person for one female is a brother, another female is a spouse. Like how a single person plays dual role, multiple role. Here it plays multiple role. Okay, hence it is called role playing dimension. This is another approach. To avoid inactive relationship, we can duplicate the table. The problem with this one is if you have multiple date table, you need to create multiple relationship. For each date column, you have to create separate date dimension table. Maintenance overhead is there in this case. Okay, and number of tables will get increased. Okay, instead you can go for this approach. Okay, you can have multiple relationship. And now you know how to enable or activate the inactive relationship as active temporarily until the calculation is done. This is the better approach. Okay, or you can, but sometimes if you think you have only two date column, is it better? You can use this one. Okay, and for example, you have multiple relationships are existing. Probably in that kind of situation, you can create a direct relation, something like that. Okay. Now you understood what is active relationship, what is inactive relationship, what is the how do we activate the inactive relationship. One approach is you can use a DAX function. Other approaches we can use a role playing dimension. We can duplicate the same date table and then you can create the relationship between the tables directly. But here, in this case, we hardly have two relationships. The inactive, instead of having inactive relationship, we delete it. You could duplicate the table, you can create two inactive active relationships, fine. But in the real world scenario, it is not just two relationships. You will have more, 4 or 5 relationships will be there between the tables. For each and every relation, we cannot create separate table. Okay. So with this, I believe all of you are able to understand what is active and inactive.